On that sultry morning, the public hospital corridor was filled with moans, hurried footsteps, and the strong smell of disinfectant. Amid the peeling walls and the sound of gurneys being pushed, two small brothers, dressed simply and with distressed looks, ran back and forth. Their teary eyes revealed the desperation beyond their trembling voices. "Sir, please, save our mommy. She's going to die." "We don't have money for treatment," the older brother begged, clutching the hem of a man's jacket they barely knew. The younger brother, his hands dirty and his eyes red from crying, whispered the same request as if it were a prayer. The elegant man, accustomed to private rooms and luxurious hospitals, never imagined he'd find himself there, facing so much pain. He'd ended up at that hospital by chance, after his pregnant wife fell ill on the road during a trip. For him, it was just an unexpected stopover. But upon encountering those desperate boys, something in his heart began to tremble. These weren't just words. It was life crying out for help through innocence. He could have simply looked away, gone on his way, cared only for his own family. But he couldn't. The tightness in his throat and the memory of his own difficult childhood made him stop, look deeply into the children's eyes, and sense a greater purpose in this coincidence. In that moment, without realizing it, his life was about to change forever. Before we dive into this surprising plot, tell me from which city in Brazil you are watching us. Leave a comment and I will respond with gratitude. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and like this video. We want to share more stories like this. The meeting at the hospital, the public hospital, was crowded. It was one of those places where time seemed to slow down, but pain rushed by, filling every corner of the hallways. The sound of muffled conversations mingled with the beeping of monitors, and every now and then a scream of pain pierced the room like a blade. The walls, already stripped of paint, bore the marks of neglect. The air, heavy, carried the smell of alcohol and suffering. It was in this setting that fate wove an unexpected plot. A man in a well-cut suit, though a little wrinkled from the car ride, walked down the hallway with a worried expression. He was a billionaire, owner of companies that managed hundreds of employees, accustomed to private clinics where silence was a luxury. He was there by chance. His pregnant wife had fallen ill on the road, and the public hospital had been the closest. It was an unexpected event, a detour he never imagined taking. He walked with firm steps, trying to maintain control, but his heart was racing. Suddenly, something interrupted his thoughts. Two children appeared before him. The oldest, perhaps 10 years old, wearing a threadbare t-shirt and worn sandals, clung to the man's arm with desperate strength. His eyes, wide and watery, seemed to be crying out for help. The boy spoke quickly, almost breathlessly. "Sir, please, save our mommy. She's going to die. We have no money. No one will help. Please." The youngest, no older than 6, trembled as he held his brother's hand. He repeated the plea softly as if it were a prayer. "Save mommy. Save mommy." The purity in his childlike voice pierced the heart of anyone who passed by. The man, surprised, stood still for a few seconds. At first he thought it was a mistake, that the children had mistaken him for a doctor, but their looks left no doubt. This was no ordinary request. It was life begging through innocence. He knelt down to their level and in a calm voice asked, "Where's your mummy?" The older man pointed to a room with rusty doors where doctors and nurses hurried past, ignoring the boys. The man took a deep breath. What to do? That wasn't what he was here for. His wife needed him too, but the tightness in his chest told him he couldn't just turn away. Tears streamed down the children's faces. The eldest continued, his voice now choked. "We have nothing, young man. We've already asked for help. No one listens. Our mom can't leave. She's all we have. If she dies, we'll be alone in the world." These words pierced the billionaire's heart like an arrow. He remembered his own difficult childhood. when he had also had to reach out for help and often received only silence. The weight of the memory made him shudder. There before him was the living portrait of his own past pain, etched on the innocent faces of those two little ones. Meanwhile, his wife remained under observation in a nearby ward. He knew she was stable, at least for the moment, and in no immediate danger. This gave him a modicum of breathing room to act. Still, he felt torn. On one side, his family. On the other, the life of a mother who depended on urgent care. He stood and walked toward the room, the boys at his side, clinging to his clothes. Inside, he saw a young woman with pale skin, breathing heavily. She was on a simple stretcher with poor equipment. A nurse was trying to stabilize her, but the situation was critical. The doctor, tired and overwhelmed, murmured, "She needs tests and medications we don't have here. If she's not transferred soon, there's not much we can do." The billionaire felt his heart race. The scene seemed ripped from a nightmare. He looked back at the children who were watching with wide eyes, and then at his wife, who was struggling to hold her eldest son's hand. Her voice, barely audible, whispered, "Take care of each other." At that moment, the man made a decision. He wouldn't just stand by and watch. He wouldn't allow those children to lose their mother without a fight. Life had placed that encounter in his path, and he knew it wasn't by chance. With firm steps, he left the room and began making calls. His expensive cell phone now seemed like a powerful weapon against fate. He ordered a private ambulance to be sent immediately, medical specialists mobilized, and everything ready to save that woman. The children watched with renewed hope. For the first time, someone was truly moving. The oldest squeezed his brother's hand and whispered, "I think God sent this man to us." The billionaire listened, and those words echoed in his soul like confirmation. It wasn't chance, it was purpose. And so, in that forgotten public hospital, two worlds collided. That of wealth and that of poverty, that of luxury and that of necessity. But in that moment, there was no difference. There was only one heart being touched by another, and the promise that hope would not die. The first step had been taken, but the journey had only just begun. Unlikely help and the beginning of hope. The sound of the billionaire's calls echoed in the hallway, his firm, urgent voice seeming to breathe life into that hospital accustomed to the silence of helplessness. He didn't ask for favors, he gave orders, and on the other end of the line, renowned doctors and administrators obeyed immediately. It was as if fate had, in that instant, built an invisible bridge between two realities. The power of those with all the resources and the fragility of a family with nothing but faith and desperation. The boys, still glued to his clothes, watched his every move with eyes full of hope. To them, this unknown man wasn't just a rich man in an elegant suit. He was like an angel sent in human form. The youngest, in a weak voice, asked, "Are you really going to save our mom?" The billionaire took a deep breath, bent down again to the child's level and replied, "I'll do everything in my power, and believe me, it's a lot." Inside the room, the woman moaned in pain. The local doctor tried to stabilize her with the few resources available, but his tired eyes showed that this wouldn't be enough for long. He approached the billionaire and said in a resigned tone, "If you can do anything, do it quickly. We've already reached our limit here." That harsh sincerity made clear the magnitude of the challenge. Less than 30 minutes later, the sound of sirens announced the arrival of a private ambulance. Doctors dressed in clean lab coats and equipped with modern equipment entered the hallway, drawing looks of astonishment from all the patients who had been waiting for hours, perhaps days, without proper care. For many, it seemed almost like a vision. The boys, holding each other's hands tightly, watched the scene as if witnessing a miracle. The billionaire coordinated everything. With the experience of someone accustomed to leading large operations, he gave clear instructions. Prepare the transfer immediately. I want constant monitoring and direct contact with me for every update. The professionals obeyed respectfully, aware that he was not just a demanding client, but someone who put his heart into every order. As the stretcher began to move, the mother struggled to open her eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. Who's doing this? Her eldest son leaned over her and said, "Mommy, it was the boy. He's going to save you." A tear ran down the woman's face, and she squeezed the boy's hand before closing her eyes again. With every passing second, the tension mounted. The transfer was delicate, and any delay could be fatal, but now there was an invisible force driving everything. The unlikely union between the children's innocent faith and the man's nearly limitless resources. As he watched the journey to the ambulance, the billionaire felt something inside him break. It wasn't just charity, it was a calling. He wondered why those children had found him, why in that particular hospital, on that day, at that time. And the answer seemed clear. Nothing was by chance. Outside, under a grey sky that threatened rain, the ambulance waited with its doors open. The boys didn't want to let go of their mother, but the medical team reassured them. "You're going with her too," the billionaire assured them. He knew separating them would be too cruel. With that, the two climbed into the ambulance, sitting next to the stretcher, holding their mother's hands as the machines began monitoring her vital signs. Before the door closed, the billionaire looked inside the vehicle and said, "You're not alone. I'll be right behind you." The older boy, tears in his eyes, nodded silently, carrying a confidence he hadn't felt in a long time. As the ambulance departed, he returned to the hospital to check on his wife. He found her more stable, resting in a simple room. She smiled weakly when she saw him and asked, "What's going on? I saw you running, talking on the phone." He sat beside her, held her hand and explained in a choked voice, "Honey, I found 2 children. Their mother is between life and death. I couldn't turn my back. I've already arranged everything to take her to a good hospital." His wife, though weak, squeezed his hand and whispered, "Then you did the right thing. If it had been me on that stretcher, or if it had been our children crying out for help, I would have wanted someone to have compassion." These words reinforced within him the conviction that he had made the right decision. Soon, he too left the public hospital and followed the ambulance in his car. During the journey, he gazed out the window at the simple, potholed streets, reflecting on the inequalities he had previously preferred to ignore. He had always believed he was helping enough with donations and foundations in his name, but now he realized that nothing could replace a direct gaze, a human touch, and the pain experienced so closely. At the private hospital, the woman was urgently admitted. Advanced tests were performed, medication administered, and within hours, signs of improvement were evident. The billionaire, who was waiting in the hallway with the children, never took his eyes off them. The youngest, exhausted, fell asleep in his brother's lap, who remained awake, alert for any movement at the door. When the doctor in charge finally left the room, the boys' hearts raced. The man in the lab coat smiled and said, "She's responding well. It's still early, but we have a good chance. If it had taken longer, I don't know if we would have made it." The older man's eyes filled with tears. He stood up and hugged the billionaire tightly, without saying a word. That silent embrace spoke louder than any thank you. The billionaire felt his chest tighten. There, in the middle of a cold hospital corridor, he experienced something his money could never buy, a true sense of purpose. The children didn't ask for numbers, they didn't ask for luxury, they simply asked for their mother's life. And he, with all the resources in the world, was able to answer that cry. As he watched the relieved boys, he muttered to himself, "God, now I understand why you brought me here. But that was just the beginning, because saving the mother was only part of the story. The true miracle lay in transforming not only the lives of that humble family, but also the heart of a man who believed he already had it all, but who, faced with two desperate children, discovered he still had much to learn about love and humanity. Bonds of pain and hope. The silence of the private hospital contrasted sharply with the chaos of the public hospital where it had all begun. There, the walls were bright, the corridors well lit, and the air seemed lighter, less charged with pain. But for those two boys, every second was still a burden, for even surrounded by technology and attentive doctors, the fear of losing their mother still burned in their hearts. The billionaire, sitting in a comfortable armchair in the hallway, watched them intently. The eldest, ever vigilant, never left the door to the room where his mother was hospitalized. His childlike eyes were too tired for his young age, as if the weight of adult responsibilities had settled on his shoulders too early. The youngest, still drowsy, played with a piece of paper he'd found in his pocket, folding it and pretending it was an airplane, as if with that simple gesture he was trying to dispel the darkness that surrounded their young lives. The man took a deep breath, deepening his thoughts. He had built empires, negotiated million-dollar deals, faced shareholders' boards and ruthless competitors, but he had never felt so much pressure as he did now. There were no spreadsheets, no contracts, no protection clauses. There were just two defenseless children and a woman fighting for her life. For the first time in years, he asked himself, what's the point of having so much power if it's not to save what really matters? Shortly afterward, the attending physician returned with good news. The mother was responding well to treatment, and there was concrete hope for recovery. The boys embraced emotionally, tears streaming down their dirty, tired faces. The billionaire, upon seeing the scene, felt something inexplicable vibrate within him. It was as if, for a moment, his soul was being cleansed. He then decided to get closer to his brothers. He sat on the floor at their height and asked softly, "What are your names?" The eldest hesitantly replied, "I'm Gabriel, and he's Miguel." The billionaire smiled. Two biblical names, strong, like guardian angels. Coincidence? Perhaps not. After all, he was beginning to realize that nothing in this situation was a coincidence. "Gabriel and Miguel," he repeated, as if engraving those names in his heart. "You are very brave." Gabriel lowered his head, embarrassed. "I just didn't want Mom to die. I promised Dad before he left that I would take care of her and Miguel." The billionaire frowned. "Your father left?" The boy took a deep breath and responded with the harsh frankness that only a mistreated childhood knows. "He really left. He said he couldn't take it anymore, that we were too much trouble. He never came back. Since then, it's just been the three of us, me, Miguel, and Mom." The silence that followed was heavy. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat. That 10-year-old boy carried the weight of a grown man, a provider, a protector, and yet he had pure eyes full of faith. Miguel, the youngest, added, "But Mom always says that God never abandons us, that at the right time, he sends someone to help." These words fell like an arrow to the man's heart. He, accustomed to explaining everything through logic and numbers, now found himself confronted by a simple truth, spoken from the mouth of a child. God's right time had come, and he was the chosen instrument. Later, as night fell, the billionaire went down to the hospital cafeteria to get something hot. He returned with sandwiches and milk for the boys, who, upon receiving their food, broke into broad smiles. They weren't used to large meals, much less in hospitals. They ate as if thanking heaven, each bite a victory. He watched in silence, wondering how such a simple life could carry so much dignity. Meanwhile, his wife rested. She was now out of danger, according to the doctors, but she insisted he remain by the side of those children. "They need you more than I do right now," she said, with a sweetness that confirmed what he already felt. Fate was demanding more than money from him. It was demanding dedication. And he surrendered. He spent the night in the hospital, sharing hard chairs with his brothers, covering Miguel with his own jacket when the little boy fell asleep again. Gabriel's gaze, ever awake, seemed to watch over the entire world to protect what was left of his family. The billionaire, touched by that attitude, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You don't have to carry everything alone, Gabriel. Now you have me." The boy, surprised, took a while to respond. Perhaps because he wasn't used to trusting, but deep down, he knew those words carried real weight. The next morning, doctors gave a new update. The mother was conscious. When the boys entered the room, tears flowed everywhere. She tried to speak, but emotion prevented her. She simply stretched out her weak arms, embracing her two sons in an embrace that seemed to mend the world. The billionaire watched from afar, his eyes welling up. That woman, though fragile, exuded strength. When she finally managed to speak, she asked the billionaire, "Why did you do this for us?" He didn't have a ready answer. He just smiled and said, "Because sometimes life puts us in the right place at the right time, and it's no coincidence." She closed her eyes and nodded, as if understanding that there was a greater hand guiding everything. In the days that followed, the billionaire not only paid for the full treatment, but also grew ever closer to the family. He spent hours talking to Gabriel about his dreams, about school, about the life he wanted to have. He joked with Miguel, who made him laugh with his childish and innocent jokes. And above all, he reflected. He reflected on how many other families might be going through the same thing with no one to lend a hand. He began to realize that this encounter not only saved a life, but also rekindled a dormant flame within him. The flame of true compassion, the one that doesn't calculate gain, that doesn't seek recognition, the flame of simply loving. By the end of the first week, he was no longer just a distant benefactor. He was part of their routine. He was like an uncle, or even a father on loan, someone who brought security, food, hope. The boys would run to hug him when he arrived, and their mother, still recovering, would express her gratitude with her eyes for every gesture. And the billionaire, finding himself so close to them, felt something inside him transform. It was no longer just about saving a life. It was about being saved too, saved from coldness, saved from indifference, saved from the illusion that money is enough to fill the emptiness in his soul. Because deep down, those two little ones had given him much more than he could ever offer, a new meaning to life. The purpose revealed. The days progressed with the gentleness of a miracle unfolding slowly. In the hospital, the boy's mother was no longer teetering on the brink of death, but was still undergoing a delicate recovery process. The billionaire, who had initially approached them to offer only immediate assistance, now found himself caught up in an unexpected routine. His days, previously dominated by meetings, travel, and multi-million-dollar deals, had been replaced by simple coffees in the hospital cafeteria, long conversations with doctors, and, above all, the company of those two brothers who increasingly drew him into their lives. Gabriel, the eldest, had become a silent confidant. The boy spoke little, but his eyes spoke volumes. He always carried on his shoulders the responsibility of protecting Miguel and keeping his mother from seeing the depths of his pain. The billionaire, observing this, recognized his own childhood in that boy, a child forced to mature too soon. Miguel, in turn, brought light to every moment. With his innocence and joy, he transformed cold hallways into airplane runways, transformed napkins into colorful drawings, and laughed out loud whenever the billionaire dared to play with him. One afternoon, while walking through the hospital garden, the man stopped before a tree and sat in silence, reflecting. His wife, now fully recovered from the illness that had brought her there, approached and took his hand. She knew him like no one else. knew when his mind was immersed in dilemmas. "You look different," she said with a sweet smile. "Different how?" he asked, looking at the floor. "More human. Before I saw in you only the weight of business, numbers and goals. Now I see a new sparkle in your eyes, as if you've discovered something all the money in the world couldn't buy." He sighed deeply. "Maybe that's it. I spent years thinking I had it all, but it was all just emptiness. These boys, this mother, they made me see that purpose isn't in hoarding, but in sharing." She squeezed his hand and whispered, "Then perhaps this is the greatest legacy you can leave to our unborn child. A father who knows the value of compassion." Her words echoed like a revelation. Yes, he was about to be a father, and perhaps God had allowed that encounter to prepare him, to mold a hardened heart into one capable of true love. The next morning, the billionaire decided to visit the family's home. Gabriel and Miguel were ecstatic as they showed him the way, proud of every detail, however simple. It was a humble little house, with peeling walls, old furniture, and few objects. But there was a warmth there that no luxurious mansion had ever offered, the warmth of togetherness, even in pain. He explored every corner, observing the makeshift toys, the drawings scrawled on the walls, and even a small altar with an unlit candle and a picture of faith. "This is where we pray for Mom every day," Miguel explained, with the naturalness of someone who believes without hesitation. The billionaire knelt before that simple altar and for the first time in years closed his eyes and said a silent prayer. He asked for nothing. He simply expressed gratitude for being there, learning from that family the true meaning of life. Back at the hospital, he called the doctor and wanted to understand all the details of the treatment. He asked about costs, medications, recovery time. And when he heard the numbers, he didn't hesitate to say, "I'll take responsibility for everything. I don't want this woman and these boys to spend another night in distress." The doctor, surprised, nodded respectfully. And so it was. Day by day, the mother's health improved and hope blossomed in Gabriel and Miguel's eyes. But the billionaire didn't stop there. The experience had instilled in him a deeper uneasiness. How many other mothers would be dying in crowded hallways due to lack of resources? How many other Gabriels and Miguels would be crying with no one to listen? One night, sitting by the hospital window, he opened his laptop and began writing a project. He called it Hope Foundation. The idea was simple yet grand, to create a network of equipped and accessible hospitals where no family would be turned away for lack of money. His heart burned with purpose as he typed, and for the first time in years, he felt he was investing in something that would not only make a profit, but also save lives. The next day, he showed the idea to his wife, who smiled excitedly. "I always knew there was a greater purpose for everything we've achieved," she said. "Now it's time to give back to the world what we've received." And so, little by little, his life began to transform. He was no longer just a businessman, but a man who had discovered the essence of love. Gabriel, observing everything closely, began to truly trust him. One night, while Miguel slept, the boy approached and spoke softly. "You know you changed our lives, don't you? Before, I thought no one cared, but you showed that kindness still exists." The billionaire smiled and placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "And you, Gabriel, changed mine. You taught me to be stronger, more human. I owe as much to you as you owe me." The mother, now more recovered, also made a point of expressing her gratitude. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I don't know why you did so much for us, but I know I'll never forget it. You saved not only my life, but the lives of my children." He took a deep breath and answered sincerely, "I didn't do it by accident. I did it because I felt God put me in your path, and somehow it was you who saved my soul." In that moment, An invisible pact was sealed between them. They were no longer just strangers thrown together by the chance encounter of a hospital. They were a family chosen by destiny, a story woven by invisible hands. And as the billionaire left the hospital that night, he felt the wind touch his face like a divine caress. He looked up at the starry sky and murmured silently, "Now I know what my purpose is." What he didn't know yet was that that encounter would change not only the lives of one humble family, but also the lives of thousands of others who would be reached by his decision to transform pain into hope. Because when love touches a heart, it never stops in one place. It multiplies. The news of that humble mother's recovery spread through the hospital corridors like a breath of life. Patients who had previously looked at her with sorrow now smiled as they watched her walk, albeit slowly, hand in hand with her children. It was like witnessing a rebirth before their eyes. Gabrielle and Miguel were glued to her, and with every step, they seemed to silently thank her for this miracle, only possible because a wealthy stranger chose not to turn his back. But the billionaire no longer saw himself as a stranger. He was there, present, involved, as if that family were part of him. One morning, he gathered the three of them in a private room at the hospital and told them his decision. "I don't just want to help you today. I want to ensure you never experience this despair again. From now on, I'll make sure you have everything you need. Healthcare, schooling, safety." His mother's eyes immediately filled with tears. She tried to protest, saying she couldn't accept so much, but he cut her off firmly. "It's not charity, it's purpose. I found you by chance, but none of this was chance. It was destiny. You showed me what truly matters, and I want to live that truth every day." Gabriel, who had always been the most suspicious, finally relented. He smiled shyly and hugged the man tightly. It was the first time he had shown complete trust. Miguel, in turn, ran into his arms as if he were a beloved uncle, laughing loudly and saying, "Now we have a big family." The billionaire moved, realized that this was the greatest payment he could receive. The pure trust of two children who had learned too early to distrust the world. But his transformation didn't stop there. Shortly thereafter, his team of lawyers and administrators was summoned. He presented the Hope Foundation project and said firmly, "From now on, we won't just be a company that generates profits. We'll be a company that generates life. I want hospitals, clinics, and teams trained to care for those who have nothing. We'll no longer see children asking for their mothers in the hallways without anyone listening." There was resistance, of course. Some directors questioned the costs, others worried about their public image. But he was undeterred. He looked each of them in the eye and declared, "I am the owner, and as long as I have resources, they will serve this purpose. If anyone doesn't believe that, they can leave now." Silence fell over the room. No one stood up. Everyone realized that something in him had changed profoundly, and that the change was irreversible. A few months later, the first Fundação Esperança unit opened. It was a modern hospital, built in a deprived area where entire families survived on the brink of decent health care. Hundreds of people gathered at the inauguration, curious and hopeful. Among them was Gabriel and Miguel's mother, still recovering, but with a renewed sparkle in her eyes. Beside her, her two sons beamed with pride, as if this great achievement were also the fruit of their struggle. On stage, the billionaire spoke to the crowd. This work wasn't born from a business project. It was born from a desperate plea. Two boys called out to me in the hallway of a public hospital and said, "Please save our mother." And in that moment, I realized I could no longer live just for myself. I discovered that true power lies not in what we have, but in what we share. Today, I share with you what was once mine alone. May this hospital be a place where hope never dies. The audience gave a standing ovation. Many wept. It was impossible not to be moved by these words, coming from someone accustomed to living in another world, but who now lowered himself to see firsthand the pain of ordinary people. Behind the scenes, Gabriel and Miguel watched the scene with shining eyes. To them, this man wasn't just a billionaire. He was the angel God had sent to hear their prayers. And now they knew they weren't the only ones to be saved. Thousands of other families would have a chance too. Over time, new units emerged. The Hope Foundation became a national network, a symbol of solidarity and transformation. Reports highlighted the impact, interviews told stories of lives saved, and the billionaire's name became associated not with fortunes and companies, but with miracles and humanity. But for him, nothing surpassed the feeling of sitting on the sofa in Gabriel and Miguel's simple home, drinking coffee brewed through a cloth strainer, listening to stories of their childhood, and seeing his mother, now healthy, smiling gratefully. There, within humble walls, he found more peace than in any luxurious penthouse. One special night, when he saw Miguel asleep on his lap and Gabriel leaning against his side, the billionaire looked at his mother and said, "I thought I was saving you, but actually, you saved me." She smiled and replied in a calm voice, "Life is like that. God never allows an encounter without purpose." Those words resonated deeply. He understood that his mission was just beginning. The foundation would be his legacy to the world, but his greatest legacy of all would be the transformation those children brought to his heart. Because in the end, it wasn't money that saved a life. It was love. The innocent love of two boys who dared to ask for help. The love of a mother who, even though weak, never stopped believing. The love that, when it touched the heart of a man hardened by power, transformed him into an instrument of hope. And so, under the stars of that silent night, he made a silent promise to himself. He would never let the glimmer of hope fade again. For now he knew that every tear wiped away, every hand outstretched, every life saved, was the true fortune God had entrusted to him. The final outcome, life after the miracle time passed, and with it life continued. Years after that unlikely encounter in a public hospital, the story of Gabriel, Miguel, and their mother had become a testament to hope for thousands of people. They were no longer the same boys who ran desperately through the hallways begging for help. Now they were strong, studious young men full of dreams, carrying with them the scars of a childhood that nearly crushed them, but which ended up being the beginning of a new life. The billionaire, in turn, was no longer the same man who, that day, had merely accompanied his pregnant wife on a trip interrupted by chance. He was now recognized nationally and internationally, not only as a businessman, but also as a philanthropist, mentor, and inspiration. The Hope Foundation had multiplied throughout the country. Modern hospitals in underserved areas, mobile clinics in remote communities, health education projects, all of this blossomed from a desperate plea from two children. Save our mommy. But more than the hospital expansion, what truly transformed that man's heart was the unbreakable bond he formed with that family. Gabriel and Miguel became like sons to him. They frequented his home, traveled together, but never lost the humility of their roots. The billionaire made a point of preserving this. He taught them to value each achievement, to understand that true power lies in service, not in domination. One afternoon, years later, a grand ceremony was held in the city where it all began. The new headquarters of the Hope Foundation would be inaugurated there, in the very spot where long ago their mother had nearly lost her life due to a lack of resources. The contrast was moving. Where there had once been neglect and pain, now stood a modern building with cutting-edge technology and professionals dedicated to providing dignified care. On stage, a crowd awaited the billionaire's speech, but before he took the stage, he called Gabriel and Miguel to stand beside him. Now teenagers, dressed simply but elegantly, the two boys carried in their eyes the same innocence and courage as when they first met him. As they took the microphone, Gabriel took a deep breath and said, "I was 10 years old when I asked for help to save our mother's life. That day, I didn't know if anyone would listen. But this man here listened. He not only saved our mother, but also gave us a new chance at life. Today, I understand that God does nothing by chance. Our prayer has become the salvation of thousands of other families." Miguel, with a firm but emotional voice, added, "He was the answer to a child's prayer. And that's why today I believe that miracles exist." The audience erupted in applause. Many wept, others gave a standing ovation, and the billionaire, with tears in his eyes, embraced them both as if they were part of his own blood. When it was his turn to speak, his voice echoed through the auditorium with a strength that came from the soul. "Years ago, 2 boys asked me for something simple, to save their mother. I could have said it wasn't my problem, that my life was already full of responsibilities, but I decided to listen. And in that moment, my life changed. I learned that the true miracle wasn't just saving a mother, but allowing my heart to be saved by the innocence and faith of 2 children. Today, I want to tell all of you, never ignore the cry of someone asking for help. It could be God speaking to you through that voice." The applause was renewed, even louder. And in that moment, it became clear that this story was no longer just about a family and a wealthy man. It was a story about everyone who believed that love and solidarity can change destiny. After the ceremony, Gabriel revealed his dream: to study medicine. Inspired by his mother's struggle and the help they received, he decided to dedicate his life to caring for people like they once were. Miguel, meanwhile, dreamed of becoming an engineer, helping build new foundation units. His mother, now healthy and happy, looked at her children with pride, certain that their future would be bright. On a quiet evening, back in the simple house they still owned on the same street where they grew up, the billionaire visited his family. They all sat together around a modest table, drinking fresh coffee and laughing over memories of the past. His mother, overcome with emotion, said, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here today. My children wouldn't have made it this far. But more than that, you showed us that there is still goodness in the world." He smiled and replied, "You guys showed me. I thought I had everything, but I was empty. You taught me what really matters." There was a moment of silence, filled with gratitude. Gabriel then asked, "Do you think this was all a coincidence?" The billionaire looked out the window at the starry sky and replied with conviction, "No, none of this was a coincidence. It was purposeful. God brought our lives together so that something greater could be built." At that moment, everyone felt an inexplicable peace. It was as if the entire universe confirmed those words, because indeed it hadn't been chance. It was destiny, faith, love, and courage. And so that story found its conclusion not in riches, but in eternal bonds. The billionaire discovered that the greatest treasure lay not in his companies, but in the smiles of 2 children who dared to believe. Gabriel and Miguel discovered that faith, when firm, always finds a response, and their mother discovered that love can conquer even death. Years later, when thousands of people were saved by the Hope Foundation hospitals, everyone remembered that it all began with a child's plea echoing in a hallway, "Save our mommy, please." And the world, which so often seems cold and indifferent, discovered through that story that when love becomes action, miracles happen and multiply. And if this story spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Also share this video with someone you love. Click now, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming stories that we are already preparing with great care for you. Remember, every like, every subscription, and every comment helps us reach more people and keep this mission of touching hearts through stories alive. So be part of this family that grows every day. And never forget, you too are the protagonist of your own story.